It's the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network, brought to you by Casamigos Tequila, brought to you by those who drink it on this Monday morning as we get ready for a very busy week, a big football week with the Giants starting off the Thursday night game against Dallas. Both teams in need of a win to get to 500 after the Cowboys fell yesterday to the Ravens. Made it look better than it should have looked. But, again, really, their defense has been absolutely nowhere so far the last couple of weeks, and they are reeling. And come to play the Giants, who they have pounded, they are reeling on defense for the first time in a while, and it's something that'll be interesting against the Giants in that matchup. And then a very big baseball week to finish the regular season. Now, the Yankees have taken all the drama out of the matchup with the Orioles, which will be at the stadium Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The Yankees are 6 games up with 6 to play. They are going to win the division. They are going to get a bye. So right now they have the best record in the American League. So there's little drama there. Orioles will make the playoffs, but they have stumbled in. There is no question about that. All the drama will be in Atlanta. And game 1 of this series, the Mets get a big win last night. They get a 6-out save out of Diaz, who got the strikeout with runners on second and third. The Mets, I don't know how many times they think they can go to that well in the postseason. I don't know if Diaz is going to be durable enough to pitch a bunch of 2-inning saves. 2-inning saves make an enormous difference in playoff games. Many, many times in his history, Mariano Rivera went 2 innings to give the Yankees a big victory. If Diaz can do that and do it on multiple occasions, it will be an enormous lift for the Mets. Now, the Mets go into this series with a 2-game lead on the Braves. Right now, all you're concentrating on is the Braves. Forget the Padres. Forget the Diamondbacks. Concentrate on the Braves, and everything will take care of itself. And game 1, the game tomorrow night in Atlanta, is as pivotal as a game can get, because we know what a house of horrors Atlanta has been. Minds, Atlanta feels if we can beat the Mets this first game, every game's going to get harder for them. And we can maybe do what we need to do, which is sweep the series. That's what Atlanta needs to do here. They need to sweep the series. 1 win, 2 wins out of 3 gets them a game back, but still puts them into the final 3 days of the season against the Royals while the Mets are in Milwaukee, and still a game behind the Mets. So they know what they need to do. If you're talking to the Braves, you're telling them, guys, we need these 3 games. And we've done it to this team before. Not this cast of characters, though. So we have to put the doubt in their mind right off the bat. Severino gets the ball in game number 1. And, again, a critical game. The Mets have won a lot of these games. They did well against the Phillies. They have won a lot of these close games recently. They have gotten the big hit. They have gotten the big play. They have done what they needed to do. Listen, never thought the Mets would have as many wins as they have this year. They've played outstanding baseball for a very long time. Their starting pitching has been stupendous. They've gotten performances, and even with the leading door injury, they've gotten guys to pick up the slack all season. Led by the spark that Iglesias has given them, but all season, so many different guys have picked up the slack for them. So much comes down to game 1. And if the Mets can get it, it could be a very easy week. If they lose it, now all the ghosts of Atlanta past come roaring back. And the Mets will find Wednesday and Thursday to be more difficult with each passing inning. So much comes down to what happens with that game number 1, Tuesday night in Atlanta. We will do something after that game because that's how pivotal that game is to this week for the Mets. Now, I want to get to the NFL and a full look at the picture as we get ready for the Monday night games. Two games tonight. Jacksonville struggling against Buffalo. The Washington-Cincinnati game, which, again, teams with big point spreads we know have done nothing in the NFL, and they did again yesterday. Yesterday you saw teams that had been bad the first couple of weeks and hadn't won jump up and play well. Some of it expected. I told you yesterday when I did the podcast after the Giant game that I thought Carolina was going to play very well. They played even better than I thought they would. Dalton played great, and they routed the Raiders to the point where Pierce is threatening jobs with the Raiders. He was so disappointed with their performance. And Denver routed Tampa. Now, Tampa's coming off a win against the Lions in Detroit to go to 2-0. Now, in comes Denver, which had been brutal the first 2 weeks. But Peyton has always been a good big underdog coach. I told you that when I picked the Broncos. And I thought they'd give Nix a different offense to play with. They did. He had a big first drive. It led to a solid game performance. And now Denver got a win and now gets to come back and play the Jets this week, as the Jets will play that game, then play Minnesota in London, and then the Bills in a big primetime affair the week after that. Now, last night, I had picked the Falcons, so you might think this is more subjective than objective, but it's not. This is completely objective. I thought Atlanta had a great chance to win the game. I did not think they'd win the game once their center and right tackle went out, because it changed their offense completely and took away a lot of things they had hoped to do in the game. It was a terrible loss to have both guys go down, especially the center, who they couldn't replace. Now, but this was a game where Kansas City shows you they know how to win these close games better than anybody in this league, with their head coach, with their quarterback, with their defensive coordinator, with their defensive players. They make plays. They make plays in tight games. And they did it again for the third time in 3 weeks. Now, that's a game Atlanta should have won. And it was lost on pilot error. It wasn't lost on the field. It was lost on pilot error. And it also was lost on a terrible call. Now, if that call had given the Falcons the lead, and I'm talking about the third down pass play with more than 4 minutes left when he hit Pitts in the back of the end zone, and Pitts was absolutely mugged. I mean, even the announcers said it was blatant pass interference. It was blatant how bad it was. The Falcons should have taken the lead there. I'm not saying they would have won the game, because Kansas City could have come down and won. But they should have taken the lead there. But I'm talking about what happened after that. And really before that. Before the half, it's 14-10. Falcons get the ball back on a punt. Inside a minute, Andy's going to get the ball to start the second half. He's going to let the clock run out. Instead, reeling with their offensive line, up 14-10, they throw the ball down there, get picked off, and Kansas City gets a field goal. You gave them 3 points for no reason. There was no reason to do anything except get into the half there. You're reeling with your offensive line. You've got to make adjustments with your offensive line. You haven't looked good in the last couple of drives. Why would you possibly throw the ball there? It was a terrible misjudgment by Morris. It cost them 3 points. Now, take that to the point where Kansas City is leading 22-17. The third down play from the 5-yard line, 3rd and goal from the 5, was the play Pitts should have gotten a flag on. He didn't. What is Morris thinking? It's 4th and 5. He's rushing the play in against the play clock. He's got 3 timeouts, which he wants to keep in his pocket. He goes on 4th down and runs an awful, hurried play instead of doing what he should have done, field goal, make a 2-point game with 4 and change left and 3 timeouts and your defense playing well. Make Kansas City make plays. Kansas City didn't have Pacheco. Kelce is out to lunch right now. They are not. Rice was banged up at that point. They are not the same team. Instead, he goes on 4th down. And what happens? They get back down the field again, where they would have been just running the clock down, setting up for a game-winning field goal if they had taken the field goal they should have taken with 4 and change left. Instead, they get down there. They run a bad first down play. They get all but probably a third of a yard back on 2nd down. On 3rd down, I hate the play they run. They don't get the first down. On 3rd down, they should have put the backup quarterback in and run a quarterback sneak. I wouldn't run it with Cousins because he's not very good with ball security and he's not very good running with his legs. So I would have put the backup quarterback in and gone to a quarterback sneak on 3rd down. I guarantee you would have got it. If you didn't, you would line up and do it again on 4th down. Instead, on 4th down, what do? They run wide. And Kansas City stops them. So Kansas City stops them on 3rd down on a questionable play, on 4th down on a disastrous play, and wins the game 22-17. A game that Raheem Morris threw away with both hands. From the 3 points he gave them for no reason before the half, to not taking the 3 points with 4 and change left in the game and 3 timeouts. And then he would have easily come back down the field and would have been comfortably ready to kick a game-winning field goal and would have beat him. Instead, they were hurried, they were off their game, they were rattled, and they ran awful plays on what was really goal line situation, since it was 3rd and short, 4th and short, on around it was like the 10-yard line. It's a game Kansas City was so fortunate to win. And yes, for the 2nd straight week, they didn't get called for a penalty they should have. You want to say they put themselves in position to win? They do. You want to say they're very good at winning close games? They are. They're champions. They're champions at quarterback. They're champions at head coach. They have great players and a great coach. They win close games. But a big part of it is down the stretch of these games, they don't make the mistakes that the other teams make. They let the other team make the mistake. And if you do that, you win in this league. Part of it's execution. A big part of it is keeping your composure and staying away from the blunder, either the blunder of making the wrong call on the sideline, the blunder of not handling the clock and the game situation right as a head coach, or a bad play call. They will never be in the wrong play call. They will never make those kind of mistakes at the end of the game. And with Spags running their defense, and with the winners they have on defense led by Chris Jones, and with Mahomes running the offense and Andy Reid there, they are always ready to make a play, which is why they continue week after week after week to win these close games. That is a game that if I was Atlanta, I would have sat in that locker room afterwards and been devastated that I gave that game away. It's a game Atlanta, which had pulled the game out of the fire against the Eagles, which looked better and better because the Eagles came back yesterday behind Hurts and behind Barkley and won a game in New Orleans from behind. A very big win for the Eagles. Saints struggled on offense yesterday, had a chance, and after a couple of weeks, what we told you was going to happen has already happened, and that is Philadelphia has gotten an enormous performance from Barkley. I mean, he has found a home there. He has put up big numbers so far. And again yesterday, a big performance as they come from behind and win a tough game, 15-12. And Barkley, week 109 rushing and 2 touchdowns and another touchdown receiving. Week 2, 95 yards rushing, another 20 yards on receiving. And then yesterday, 147 yards rushing on 17 carries and 2 touchdowns. He's got 5 touchdowns in 3 games. He's already off to a tremendous start. He's rushed for 351 yards in 3 games with 5 touchdowns. So he's done a tremendous job, and that was a very big win for the Eagles. And does it bring the Saints back to earth? A little bit. They have a big game with the Falcons this week, a bigger game for the Falcons. But, hey, no one thought they were going to keep scoring 40 points a game. No one expected them to keep scoring 40 points a game. But you're 3 weeks into the season now. And yesterday, the teams that answered the bell, Minnesota, pounded on Houston. Yes, Sam Darnold continues to do a terrific job. Bolstered by some aggressive play calling, bolstered by having Jefferson there. Has 8 touchdowns and 2 picks and is 3-0 right now as they get ready to play Green Bay this week. They are one of the stories, maybe the story, in the NFL so far at 3-0. Pittsburgh is 3-0 after they beat a banged-up Charger team yesterday. 3 wins for a quarterback who got run out of Chicago and is already 3-0. Has it been the defense? Yes, but Fields has played a little better each week. Seattle's 3-0. Seattle hasn't had the toughest of opponents. They got a beat-up Miami team yesterday, which lost Thompson. They might have to play Huntley at quarterback unless they decide to bring somebody else in at quarterback. You don't know when Tua's coming back. And Miami couldn't get their offense going, and that's not going to sit well. Because, remember, they don't have a quarterback right now. They're banged up on the offensive line right now. But you have Hill, you have Waddle, you have Mostert, you have Ashawn. You have huge game-breaking players. It's not going to sit when you can't score. Rams stole a game from the Niners, who were 1-2. Niners with big mistakes, and the Rams decimated by injuries. Yes, hey, Niners have injuries also. McCaffrey hasn't played. Kittle didn't play. Deebo Samuel didn't play. Jennings had 175 yards and 3 touchdowns yesterday. And Purdy played well. They gave a gift to the Rams, who were behind 14 points and came back and won that game. In a game most people didn't think they would win. So San Francisco is 1-2, which is a big story. Dallas is 1-2, which is a big story. Minnesota's 3-0. Seattle's 3-0. And Green Bay has won 2-1 as they get ready to play Minnesota. Now, I don't know if Love will play this week. Because it's the Vikings, he might. It'll be a very interesting game. Lions got to win in Arizona. They played well defensively in the second half of that game. New Orleans and Tampa come back to earth yesterday. Carolina looks like a football team yesterday. Giants get a win yesterday. And Neighbors is every bit as good as advertised, maybe even better. Now, Kansas City's 3-0, no surprise. If the Chargers don't have their quarterback for a while, Denver and Vegas won't be threats. Kansas City will roll to another division title. No surprise there. Pittsburgh off to a fast start. Baltimore gets a big win in Dallas. Next week's highlight game, Baltimore and Buffalo. That's going to be a very, very big Sunday night game. Bills were playing tonight in one of the 2 Monday night games against Jacksonville. next week in Baltimore to take on the Ravens, who needed a win yesterday and got it in Dallas. Really moved the ball tremendously well. Game got closer than it should have, but they were never, ever in danger of losing the game. The Monday night games next week. The first Monday night game, Titans and Dolphins, who cares? You have Seahawks 3-0 in Detroit next Monday night, which is good. Seahawks aren't as good as their record, but they're doing a good job. And now they're banged up on the offensive line, which is not a good way to go into Detroit, because right now they have the guy who is with Garrett Hurting, is the premier pass rusher in the league. So Dallas is 1-2. San Francisco is 1-2. Baltimore is 1-2. So some surprises. And I'd say on the plus side, the biggest surprise so far, the Vikings, who have beaten San Francisco, who have now beaten Houston and pounded Houston last weekend. You did it yesterday with their blitz. They blitzed Stroud more than he'd been blitzed any time in his career, and really threw Houston off. Houston was not competitive in that game. And Darnold, who we always knew could throw the ball, is off to a really good start. So many times for a quarterback, especially a young one, it's who's surrounding you and who's coaching you. It makes a very, very big difference. So we know that so far the big dogs have done really well. Yesterday they did again. Carolina, Denver, the Giants. And although the Giants did some good things yesterday, they did some things that had you shaking your head a little bit again. But they put pressure on, because right now Cleveland has no offensive line. And you see it around the league. You lose offensive linemen. You have your tackles go down. You go to backups. The fall off is enormous. And all of a sudden, you can't move the ball. Can't protect your quarterback. It makes all the difference. Yesterday, the Giants had a picnic at the quarterback all day. And they did it in a variety of ways. But they did it. And that turned out to be a very big key. That and Neighbors' performance in the first half, which was enough to get them past. Giants didn't score in the second half. They missed the 48-yard field goal, which would have made it a comfortable game. But they got the W, and that was the important part. Now they get Dallas on Thursday night, a reeling Cowboy team, which right now can't stop anything on defense. Can't get anything going on defense. It'll be interesting to see how they match up, even against the Giants. And we know what Dallas has done to the Giants recently. Giants owe them a lot of payback. So right now, here's what you have. You have Kansas City, and you have everybody else. You have everybody trying to find their way, and you have the Chiefs, who continue to just turn out victory after victory after victory. Next week they get the Chargers. We don't know how banged up the Chargers are yet. Heineke could be a quarterback for them. If the Chiefs win that game next week, they will have already, after a month, a very big lead. And really you'll be on their way to what I think we all expected, which would be a very easy coast into the playoffs. The question is, can they get to another Super Bowl? Now, the funny thing is, Kelce is such a little part of the offense right now. And this is not unfair. Now, I don't know that it's totally accurate. I would say it's at least partially accurate. You would have to, as an organization and as a coach, you would have to question how dedicated Kelce is to the sport right now. He has a lot going on in his life. His life has taken a radical change. You see him in commercials. You see him in photo ops. You see him now very conscious of how he's dressed and what he's wearing and what the deal is and where the paparazzi are and everything else. And it has changed his life. And you wonder, where does football preparation enter into that? And it is a very fair question when you see safeties strip the ball out of his hands in big spots. When you see listless pattern running from him. When you see him be a non-factor game after game. Which is puzzling, but again, how much of that is on him? How much of that is on his preparation, his dedication? And it is fair to bring that full circle and to mention that. It's funny, one of the messages I harken back to, and a lot of times it is a Parcellsism, because you know what? It was someone I was around a lot and heard him preach, but also it was effective and it won. And one of the things he used to preach all the time was, I want my star players to be football players, not celebrities. I don't want you out making a bunch of appearances. I don't want you out making a bunch of commercials. I don't want you worrying about your other life right now. That will come. That's for the off season. That's not for the season. And he was especially hard on that on his quarterback. Now, Kelce's not a quarterback. But clearly, at this stage of his career, you wonder where he is in his dedication, in his preparation, because his performance has fallen off dramatically. And it's not just, the Chiefs are just going away from Kelce. It's not that. It's more than that. How much more than that? We don't know yet. But it completely bears watching. Because it's extremely logical. It's extremely human. His life has changed. He's now prancing around the globe with one of the most famous people in the world. His life is a photo op. What he's got on is a topic of conversation. He's doing commercials with his brother, who's no longer in the sport. His brother now can worry about being a personality and doing commercials and doing appearances and doing podcasts because he's not playing anymore. But nobody expected Kelce, Travis Kelce, to not play anymore. And right now, he's not playing worth a damn. And it just brings up very legitimate questions. It doesn't mean that this is 100% on target. I don't know that. I'm not close enough to the situation to know that. But it makes a lot of sense. Makes plenty of sense. Because his life has been turned upside down. And to think that it hasn't had an impact on his football is silly. Of course it has. It'd be crazy to think it hasn't. But how much does that mean to the Chiefs, who just continue to find a way? It's really, it's something that you've gotten very used to. You've gotten very used to the Chiefs playing close games and finding a way, as they did against the Ravens in Week 1. They get outplayed by the Bengals, and what happens? They find a way to win that game too. Bengals walk away saying, man, we should have won that game. What happens? Chiefs win it by a point. And last night, the Falcons, you'll go into that locker room after the game thinking, we should have won that game. And what happens? The Chiefs make a stop on 3rd and short, on 4th and short. get away with a pass interference call in the end zone and win a game where they really didn't do a whole lot offensively. But once again, they did enough. They find a way to win, and that's the best thing you can ever say about any team in any sport, in professional sports, and that is that they understand how to win. When a team collectively learns that, a mature team that has got championship rings learns that they are going to come out on top in these close games, it makes a tremendous amount of difference, and it makes them very, very hard to topple in a big spot. Kansas City is never going to blink at the end of a game. You're going to have to take it from them. They are never going to give it to you. And every week, it's almost like the same scenario in the fourth quarter, but they find a way. And it's always them on the long side of the score. So week 4 is not dotted with big games. There's not that many. If you're the Giants and the Cowboys, it's a very big game. It's a big game for the Giants. As they get the 11 days, that would be enormous. Plus, to pay the Cowboys back would be very nice. But Vikings and Packers is going to be very interesting, especially if Love plays. The other game is the Sunday nighter between Buffalo and the Ravens, because the Ravens at 1-2 are going to desperately need that game to get to 2-2. If they can get to 2-2, they threw off that 0-2 start, and they did it in a big way. Other than that, there's not a lot of great matchups for Week 4, but Packers and Vikings, Bills and Ravens, that will highlight the Week 4, and I'll tell you, I say it all the time. There's a lot of things about the NFL that ring true every year. And one of them is, it is amazing how fast the season goes by. It's Week 1. You're waiting for Week 1. You're waiting for Week 1 all summer. And here's Week 1. And you blink, and it's Week 4. And then the next thing you know, it's Halloween, and it's Week 9. And now you're thinking about, let me look at the Thanksgiving matchups. And then it's Thanksgiving, and now you're in the stretch run. Now you got 5 weeks left in the regular season, and you start hearing about, wild card implications, and let me look at the playoff possibilities, and blah. Like the snap of a finger. That's how quickly the NFL season goes by. It's already coming up on we're finishing Week 3 tonight. It's already coming up on Week 4. And it seems like a minute ago we were getting ready for the Jets and the Niners. Think about how much has happened already in the season, because every week is another story. This team's up, this team's down. This team's dead, this team's not. This team's hot, well, they were hot. They're hot, no, they're not anymore. And every week it's a new saga, except if you're in Kansas City. Where, think about it. Think about the Chiefs, who couldn't get out of their own way for 4 decades. And they pounce on Philadelphia letting Andy Reid loose. Pounce on it. I mean, not 2 hours go by. And they've gotten Andy Reid on his way to Kansas City. And look what that has meant for that city and that franchise. And how dominant they have been. I mean, they are now an eyelash away from being an NFL bona fide dynasty for this run. They're an inch away from it. And now Andy Reid, who I remember, I used to defend Andy Reid on the air all the time. Oh, Andy Reid can't win a big game. Andy Reid's he's overrated. He never runs the ball. He always passes the ball. All the stuff I heard about Andy Reid. And now you see him looking like a big apple, resplendent in red on the sideline each week. And now it's Andy Reid, fourth winningest coach of all time. Legendary head coach. One of the great head coaches in the history of the National Football League. Amazing how things change. We'll see you later.
Thanks for listening to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.